Okay, here we go. This is Subaru BRAT, day 2. We are getting into the fuel system, and let's take a look at this gas tank and show you exactly what we're talking about. It's rough. All right, we're gonna do our best to get you a look down inside this tank. It's pretty difficult to get a light down in there and a camera. But there we go. Come on. Yeah, you can start to get glimpses of it, and you can see just how bad it is. You can see right there on the outside, the rim. There we go. See just how bad it is. I have a old school local radiator shop here in town still. They're disappearing all over the country, and fortunately we still have one. I have had them work miracles on this kind of thing before. So that is where we're going right now. We're gonna drop this tank off and have them boil it and see what they can do with this tank. And like I said, I have seen them work miracles on stuff that I didn't think was gonna come back. All right, so when we get back after dropping that fuel tank off at the radiator shop and having them boil, see if they can boil that out, we're gonna come back here and we're gonna mess around with this factory fuel pump and see if we can figure it if it works. And yeah, just exactly what if we're going to have to modify and adapt a universal pump to it. This is basically just a click-clack pump. So let's go. All right, well, tank is dropped off, and we got an estimate of $1.25 to get it cleaned out. And when I get it back, it's going to look like new. I've had these guys take and do stuff for me before, and their work is impeccable. So got to be about 3 days before we get the tank back. So let's go work on that fuel pump. All right, well, we made it back from the radiator shop, got the tank dropped off. We talked about all that. These are the lines that came off of that gas tank. They're all still flexible. They didn't tear when I were taking them off. So I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna clean them up, flush them out, because if you look right there in that one, mud dauber, dirt dauber, as we call them down here in the south, been flying around and plug these lines up. So we want to make sure that there's no dirt in any of these lines. Clean them up on the outside, and I'll stick them in a Ziploc bag and preserve them and keep them, because we can reuse these lines. There's nothing wrong with them. Like I said, they're still soft, pliable. Trying to keep everything as OEM original on this Subaru is our goal. And we're gonna fix and use and reuse as much of the OEM stuff as absolutely possible. For one thing, parts are made of unobtainium for this thing. They're really kind of hard to come by. I think the hardest thing that we're working on right now is this fuel pump, and one of the other things that's just hard to come by is the tank itself. So that's why we're going to try to resurrect it. So let me start getting this cleaned up. And I've got some writing and some script here on the top that I want to clean, and we'll go from there. But I want to try to get electricity to this, voltage I mean, and see if I can make this old click-clack OEM style pump, make it go to work. So let's get going. Real quick, went ahead and pulled the line off of it. Went ahead and I started cleaning it up, and of course it's got written on here 12 volts. We already knew it was a 12 volt, but I actually can get a part number off of this pump. It is I could read it a minute ago. Let me see if I can clean this with my knife. What brand it is. That was a supplier for Subaru back in the day. It's a Japanese name, and I'm probably gonna totally mangle it, being a southern boy from Mississippi. But you know, hey, do the best we can. We talk with a little south in the mouth sometimes. But it says, well, we're almost there. What had happened is when the car is assembled, they take and spray it with some kind of an undercoating, and it kind of had a little splatter and spray on this. As best I can read, it's Jidasha Hak. Yeah, that. See what happens if I put a little. Oh yeah, that helped a lot. Put a little WD-40 on it. That makes it jump out at me. Jidoshakiki. There, I'll let you read it. Can't pronounce it, but it also has the words written on there. Electronic fuel pump, which we already knew what that was. Okay, I'm babbling. So let's I broke out my meter. I wanted to see if it was open or shorted, and it does not appear to be open. It has 1372 ohms of resistance. I ordered a service manual this morning, so I don't have any kind of spec for this, so I don't know what it is. The main thing I wanted to do is to make sure that it wasn't open and that these two weren't shorted together internally. And so that tells me that I should be able to make some jumper wires and try to fire this pump up. I don't know the polarity on it, but I don't think it's going to matter. There should be an electric coil. It should work either way. It just may pump in reverse. So the other thing that I did, and it's still dripping out of it, is I took and I sprayed some carburetor spray, because I could look down in there and I could see some crud and junk. So we put some carb spray down in it, kind of let it soak for a little bit, try to free up any junk that's stuck in the carburetor, inside the fuel pump. And I'm going to make some, go ahead and make some jumper leads and get a battery hooked up to it and see if we can make it pump. Alright, well, after a whole bunch of screwing around off camera, I've been fiddling with this pump, testing it. When I first hooked it up, it would click, but it wouldn't clack. It didn't want to pump. It didn't want to cycle. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? I would have thought that it would have run no matter which polarity you put to the pump. But that's not true. I said, well, what happens if I switch polarity? I switched polarity and the click-clack began working. It still was not pumping. So I allowed the pump. I just hooked it to the battery and I let it run. I kept cycling and squirting carburetor spray down into the pump. I just kept forcing, but it wasn't coming out the other side. It was not cycling. It was not pumping. So I went and got, where'd it go? It's sitting over here. Good old trusty WD-40, and I just kept cycling it and pushing it through. And I just kept forcing WD-40 through the pump and into the suction side, and lo and behold, it began pumping. So let me show you. Let's go and get the pump hooked up. I have a jar and a hose down here. And just stop blowing myself up. We are dealing with gasoline here. Alright, got the pump in a jar. Make sure that's on the screen. Yep. Here you can see. Then we'll put the suction side down into gas. Whoop, it's getting down there on the ground. There it comes. I need a clamp down there. It is pumping. Yeah, I don't like that at all. Yeah. Yeah, it's leaking. I need a hose clamp on that hose pipe. It's not on there real tight, but it was shooting a stream, and I actually had to unplug it because I made a mess all over the ground. It started pumping so fast and I wasn't prepared for it. But yeah, we got that little pump working. OEM pump, good to go. All right, so last night when we were running the car on the first night, when I had this boat gas tank hooked up to it and was hand priming it, it seemed like it was overcoming the needle and seat, and was causing the carburetor to flood. Even when it wasn't running, we could look over inside the carburetor and gas was just running through, and it didn't appear that the needle and seat were shutting off. So I believe what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get, since we got the gas tank down there getting cleaned, we're going to get this pump put back in it, get the right gas, get it going, and flush the lines, get everything clean, and start pushing fuel through the system with this stock pump to the carburetor before we rule out that we have to do something to the carburetor. It ran really good on the carburetor with just hand pumping fuel to it. It ran fine, but it seemed like it could possibly have a needle and seat issue. But I don't want to pull the trigger on that until we put it back on its stock fuel system. That way we know that there's something wrong with the needle and seat. We're trying to do as little as we have to this car because it's so original. And once you start tinkering and changing all that, you know, it's only original once. So we've got a lot more work to do on this Subaru, and we're going to keep going on it. And like I said, this thing will be for sale, and we'll let you know when that happens. So in the meantime, while we're working on this car and we're getting these videos out, why don't you go watch another one coming on the screen right now.